the central office staff will execute on. Secondly, I believe that the school board members are the face of the Northville Public Schools for the community. And when it comes to the impact, number one, I'm a financial guy, so I want to ensure that we have strong finances or continue to have strong finances in the Northville Public Schools. But quite frankly, things are going right. The ship is moving in the right direction, so we don't want to rock the boat, and I want to continue with that same direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Cindy.
Well, I really see the role of a board member as that of the board of directors of a corporation. Again, we are set with evaluating our only employee, which is the superintendent. We set goals, we set policy, we make sure that the budget's being prudently distributed, looking at purchases and dispositions, and really importantly for the students, we're looking at curriculum, making curriculum choices that make sense, that keep our world of possibilities open for all our learner levels, and fulfilling those curriculum guidelines with great staffing. I hope that I can continue to do that. I think the biggest opportunity I had to look at our goals and visions, we recently in 2013 and 14 revamped those goals and visions, and I think it took a really full circle turn for me to understand what my role is here, and I would like to continue that, making sure that our goals and visions align with everything that we do. Making sure there's a world of possibilities for all learner levels, making sure that we have staff that can do that, aligning IB and the MYP programs and our special education programs to really reach that full circle of students.
Thank you.
It's hard to follow the former president of our board talking about what our board should do and how we should do it. I think that
You can do all the things I forgot.
yeah, all the things you forgot. So clearly we set policy. I guess where I would put a little bit more emphasis in terms of my response is that I view myself as having a responsibility to the public to channel what moms and dads want for their kids and to be a source of a point of entry for people who want to have their voices heard and have their perspective reflected in official policy, and to in a sense negate my own ego, my own intentions, my own wishes, my own narrow vision, and embrace what that bigger picture is for the community. I think that's a really central role for this board. Of course, we set the policy and we evaluate the superintendent, but that can be embraced within the point of taking parent feedback and community feedback. In terms of the impact that I'd like to have, I think my legacy I would like to be known as is, was I a prepared, was I a thoughtful, was I a compassionate, was I a smart cookie on this board? Did I do the best that I could every time I cast a vote?
Thank you very much. Matt.
That's a great question. We as a board try to look at things from the 35,000-foot view is what we call it. We focus. We have hired educational professionals, and we hope that we do their job, and they have during my board term. We try to focus on our areas of expertise that we bring to the district, some of us in law, some of us in finance, others in other roles of their lives, and we lend that feedback to the district and provide that guidance. Particularly, we are the voice of the community. This is a public school district. There is more than just parents, more than just staff. There is the public at large, and we have to look out for those interests. We think we've done a pretty good job, but we can always do better. What impact would I have if I were elected? I'd like to continue to focus on the goals that I laid out. I want to be somebody who looks after the interests of all of the different people involved. You know, we have high flyers in the district, all the way down to our center program, which we're very proud of. We've had an upward path in enrollment, in finance, and I think with luck, I'll be able to push it, continue to push it in that direction.
Thank you very much. And Lori, so just to remind everybody where we're at with the question, what do you see your role as the Board of Education, and what impact do you hope to have if elected?
The role, as I stated before, was that I can bring an educator perspective to the board members that currently is not seen on the board. I can create an understanding because this is what I do for my job and this is what I live every day. And the impact that I would like to leave is that I am always leading with the best interest of the children in mind.
Thank you. Well, thank you all for the opening question. And now we're going to move to audience questions. And one of the first questions, and we'll start with Cindy, is please identify your opinion or your support of Common Core. Support or no support, I guess, would be the clarification.
You know, when originally Common Core came around in 2010, it was brought about by the Association of Governors, who realized that when families moved in and out of states, that there was an inequity in the educational guidelines that were going on in the schools. And it was set, benchmarks were set, guidelines were set in the state process, and then it kind of took a turn to the left. I'm not sure how, but there was, you know, some political pushback from it. They felt that the federal government was becoming too involved in the state government, and it tainted the waters of Common Core. Common Core is tied to our curriculum here. We signed onto it. We still think it's great. It doesn't mean that we dummy down our curriculum at all. It means that we have met those benchmarks, and we are exceeding those benchmarks. We can teach above that level and have curriculum available that exceeds the benchmarks that were set. It also is tied to our SETs. It's a theory and thought process, not just quantitative assessments, but more of the theory, which is the IB program, is the theory that they're looking for in the SAT testing and scores. And so I am in support of it and continuing it, and we need to keep it in the curriculum and move forward with it for the benefit of our students.
Thank you. Sarah?
Thank you for the question. I will be direct in answering it, but I will say that it's a state mandate. Common Core is a reality in our schools. And so I tend personally, just to be full disclosure, I tend to focus on, as a board member, okay, this is handed to us, how can we maximize this? If it's not something that we can change, I try to be practical about how can we do the best we can with what the state is telling us that we have to do. That said, I want to be transparent and answer the question directly. I think that a Common Core I think it's very important in concept to have a set of standards that we expect to hold ourselves to. I think that Common Core tries to do that and that it is a practical reality. I think that there are legitimate concerns that people have with implementation, right? The difference between the concept of something and how it is actually carried forward. I've heard I think, legitimate concerns that people have with how much testing goes along with Common Core, just constant standardized testing, and I think people get really weary of that, and for good reason. So I think that there are implementation hiccups and issues. I think that it's important and valuable to have common standards, and since it's a practical reality, my orientation, again, is toward maximizing our implementation.
Thank you. Matt?
Thanks for the question. I think it's very rare that people at both ends of our political spectrum come to an agreement on something, but I think the commonality between the teachers union and a lot of parent groups is that this experiment has not worked. This is subject to really two fatal flaws. First of all, it's Washington, D.C. dictating what our curriculum is, and that's not the way local public schools were envisioned in their creation. I think the second fatal flaw that some people have talked about is the excessive testing and then turning around and teaching toward the test. So we have a curriculum that is mandated from Washington. We teach towards that test, but there's no evidence that that curriculum is superior to others. There's really no hard data saying that portability of educational standards really benefits the vast majority of the students, and it does rip away local control. I don't support its continued implementation. On the other hand, we get state and federal money. We would like it so that we could not, that we would be able to opt out in some way. That just simply isn't the case. But to the extent that the question is, do I support it, the answer is no.
Thank you. Lori?
I do use Common Core because I am a teacher in the state of Michigan. It has a focus, and every card marking I'm following the Common Core. There is numerous standards that the students have to follow. It's pretty rigorous, and it's a standard, and then you as a teacher, me as a teacher in the classroom, I decide how that student is going to meet that standard. So it is a guideline that I follow, and I have to make sure that they are achieving all these standards. but at least there's something that I'm following. Before, it was very different, and it was kind of handpicking some things. So this gives me a guideline to what I am teaching, so that the students can be successful in the next level and in the next grade. So I do like following it and having something like that to follow as a standard.
Thank you. And Scott, would you like me to repeat the question?
No,
or-
no, I
okay.
understand.
Thank you.
Well, some people call Common Core standards, some people call Common Core regulations. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't like standards or regulations coming from Washington. I feel that the federal government does mess things up a lot of times. On average, the federal government funds education to the tune of about 15%. The other 85% is from state and local sources. If I were a business owner and I own 85% of a company, I would want to be the one making the rules, not the other way around. So I am in favor of local control. And additionally, high-stakes testing. It's something that teachers and parents have shared with me that they're not in favor of. So to answer your question, I am not in favor of Common Core.
Great. Thank you. I hope that answers the question from the audience. We do appreciate that question. The next question is going to start with Sarah, and actually piggybacks off some of the feedback that you gave. With the budget, as we know that there's competing budget dollars, how does the board justify which programs are selected, such as how does the International Baccalaureate program continue to receive funding when there's less than, the statistic the person wrote was less than 5% of our graduates are graduating with an IB diploma, but yet the AP classes are at capacity. So if you could summarize, how do you believe we should fund the budget with the dollars that we are given, and how do you identify which programs should be funded and continue to be funded?
I mean, we as a board, in my time, have added a Mandarin program. We have been addressed many times about strings programs, and we have a commitment to the IB program, but as the question points out, what are we doing with our many, many, many students who are taking the AP courses? That's a really big question to unpack, but just to give you my point of view. The mechanical way we do it is we actually have a matrix and a metric to go through it and look at a variety of different inputs, and that includes cost, that includes what we expect it to be, enrollment to be, and there are a variety of other issues. My personal feeling is that we could do more to empower parents to have financial goals if there are important big programs that they want to see brought into the district, and strings would be an example of that. It's a hot button one because it's been a real, there's been a real push for it. I personally feel like, why don't we give parents a numeric goal? This is what we would have to have in order to make this program really go and really be an excellent program. Instead of saying we can't because we have budget trade-offs, I personally would be oriented and really support a yes if, instead of it's just not workable within our current budget, to address those issues. But I think there's a ton to unpack in this question, and I'd love to be able to follow up.
And excuse me, Matt, because that is such a question, we only have the minute. For those that asked, there was a similar question also. If you would like time afterwards, remember just to come up afterwards if you'd like more detail about your specific question, if they can't answer it within a minute. So thank you all for staying within that time frame.
Well, thanks. That's a great question. We like to do a couple things. Number one, we like to look at potential usage. And more importantly, I think we need to understand that we have a customer here. This is not a government-granted monopoly over the residents of Northville. We will let the parents decide ultimately what is important to them and roll that out. We do have a benefit in this district in that we have been fiscally responsible for over the last period of time, and it allows us to have debates over what to add and not what to cut, which is a much worse conversation. So we try to look at it in an objective fashion. We lay it out this versus that, weigh them. There are hidden costs in some programs. Sometimes you have to provide things to students, or you have to do things in a different way that are not obvious to the naked eye. We do have we have to keep the goal and our eyes on the prize here, in that we have to make sure we have a good product that our customers want to use. Our parents have options. They have options of charter schools and private schools, and we will make sure we keep our programming up so that they'll continue to choose Northville.
Thank you. Lori?
Can I just have the question repeated?
Sure.
Okay, thanks.
With the amount of funds that Northville is given, certain programs are having to be selected. How do you determine competing dollars within a limited budget? How are certain programs selected, such as IB has lower graduation rates, but AP classes are full, versus the choir program or the strings program? How are those funds allocated, and how is it determined?
Thanks. I would ask as a board, I think that you need to ask, what does a 21st century learner look like? And what opportunities are we providing in Northville Public Schools to ensure that our students are successful when they leave Northville Public Schools? So I think based on that, I think then things go into committees, and individual committees are looking at different programs to provide for our kids so that they are successful in the future. So the way the funding is determined, I think, is based on an interest from the community stakeholders and ideas that are generated from community members, but also taken to other committees to look at a little bit deeper, just like the Mandarin program that was talked about for numerous months before it actually became a program or a class in the high school.
Thank you.
As school board members, I think that we have to listen to the parents. We have to understand what their needs are. Once we understand that, we literally have to prioritize. We have to determine which ones are going to benefit academic achievement and which ones are a little bit lower on the priority list. We have a limited budget, so we're going to have to make tough choices with many of these programs, unfortunately. I think one good alternative idea, if we can't find money in the budget, is to approach the Northville Educational Foundation, which I'm a member of. The NEF funds a number of great programs, and it's possible that they could fund one of these programs that couldn't be funded by the school district.
Thank you.
Thanks. This is really a multi-layer question, so I'm going to try and get through it quickly. When the board does look at programming, we do have a process, a protocol that we look at, and there are basically, 6 guidelines. Is it mandated? If it is, we don't have a choice. If it's not, does it fit within our school improvement plan? Does it fit into community norms as to what the community would want? Is it best practice? Do we have the budget and resources to do it? And does it fit in the IB mission or in the goals and vision of the district? So those are kind of the decisions that we have to make on an ongoing basis. Obviously, if we can fit in a program or a class into an existing curriculum setting that just expands our AP courses, our IB program, our MYP program, obviously that would probably take a little bit more precedence over or something else. But again, as a board member, we are open to hearing what the community wants. I just quickly took some stats over the last 3 years, and in 2015, we had 53 enrolled in the IB program with 100 a la carte on the DP program. In 2016, we graduated our first 19 IB students. So in 2 years, we had 19 graduates leave the building with the DP program. We have 55 enrolled